What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Flyin podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Mitchell, back with my co-host, Stephen Maslij.
What's up, Matthew?
Welcome back to the podcast of your 2024 Super Bowl champion, Eagles. It was an incredible ride this whole year, and we got to watch our Eagles take it to the top after beating the Chiefs 40-22 in the big game. And man, was it exciting. Sorry we haven't come back to you guys. We got into the celebration just like everybody else, and then decided it was best to just take a little bit of a break and come back towards the beginning of free agency and get you guys right back into the mix of all the offseason stuff and, what's to come. And luckily, we don't got to wait very long because we made it all the way to the end this year. So I was just thinking how quick everything seemed to be coming up on us. And then I realized, I was like, well, I guess we don't make it to the Super Bowl every year.
No, but it's awesome, dude. I'm very excited.
Before we jump into anything about free agency or the offseason, let's reminisce and talk about how incredible this season was and how good this team was and how phenomenal of an ending they came to after winning that Super Bowl. So what do you think?
I mean, start to finish, like we started off a little rocky, coming off like a hangover last season, to after the bye week, just completely turning around, turning a new leaf, finally establishing our team. Our great defense, like Fangio stepped in. We knew this team. Me and you've been talking all year about this roster, and it wasn't until after the Super Bowl that everyone finally looked at our roster sheet. I have no idea how.
Isn't it crazy how all year the Eagles were getting constant disrespect nationally? Jalen Hurts getting talked about on every show about how he can't take them to the Super Bowl, and then suddenly, once that game is over and the Eagles won. Now the conversation nationally is this one of the greatest teams of all time? And is Jalen Hurts a top 5 quarterback? And it really is frustrating as fans to sit here and watch the media narrative change so much. But it is also validating that everybody also finally realizes how great we've had it here this year and how incredible this team really was.
I mean, dude, complete annihilation in the Super Bowl too was just kind of unfathomable. Like, I still kind of am like, sometimes I watch highlights and I'm like, damn, like we were up 34 on this team, on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, 40-22 is definitely deceiving. It was 40-6 with 3 minutes left in the game.
Like, dude, it was just annihilation was an understatement of a dethroning of a potential dynasty, which they still can be, but for going for a three-peat and humiliating them on like the biggest stage in the entire world was just. I mean, I was baffled. I know my prediction was close. You thought we were going to win it confidently, but I don't think anyone saw actually us blowing them out.
I said a blowout was going to be 10 points, so I was definitely not expecting, what we got. I never could have expected a complete demolition the way that they handled the Chiefs, and it was truly impressive from top to bottom. I mean, I think Patrick Mahomes had like 12 yards going into halftime.
Halftime, we shut them down. He had 2 picks already. The Cooper DeJean pick 6, and then like he gets the ball back. If there's a pick the ball on, and I was like,
this on the 10-yard line, nonetheless. They just never were able to come up for air at any point. Like, we quite literally just drowned them under the pressure, and they collapsed. And it's really fun to think about the fact that the Eagles' 2 Super Bowls have come against the 2 dynasties the league have really seen, go through the league, and that feels really nice as Eagles fans.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I'll say in the past turn of the century of the 2000s.
Yeah, exactly. I know that there were some other ones, before 2000, but in terms of our lifetime, we've got to see 2 dynasties, and we got to take down both of them in the Super Bowl, and on both teams, I not to diminish any of the other dynasties that have gone through the league, but these are the 2 quarterbacks that have been debated for the GOAT, and I know the 49ers were part of that too back in the day with Joe Montana, but alas, again, our lifetime, it's been pretty cool to see us take down the 2 dynasties that we've gotten to witness, and the way we did it both times. 2 different incredible feelings. One, a complete demolition of one, and the other one, an absolute nail biter where the backup quarterback beats the GOAT in the Super Bowl. I mean, you couldn't ask for 2 better ways for it to happen. And
Yeah, I know. Me and you were having this conversation on the couch of just this one didn't. It obviously felt great winning it, but it was not. I can't think of a word other than disappointing. Not disappointing. It was more just like, oh yeah, we
It
did that.
it was hard to feel the excitement of it because of how much of a demolition it was. Like it was almost like
That was
instead
real.
of like, oh my God, we're winning the Super Bowl, it was like, oh, we just won the Super Bowl. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like we just
Oh, that was easier than I expected. Like,
yeah. It was like wow. Like, and
yeah.
I still
And it was
that
still shocking, but like, of course, and I'm not trying to diminish how awesome it was to win the Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong here. You know, it it was two drastically different feelings of winning the Super Bowl, and this one was the first one was dream world, can't believe it, like the most incredible, insane thing ever. And this one was like validating. This one was like, oh, we're here and we're ready to go on a run. Like,
yeah. I mean this team is, and we're gonna get into it, sticking together. Hopefully, most of it stays together, and we basically have our entire offense, regardless of what we do with Kenny and like literally just Kenny on the
yeah,
offensive side. Um, and it's incredible to see. It's just we'll get more into it as the season comes up, but like, geez, dude, this team is
it's
awesome, and we played our
unbelievable from
best two
top to
games with
bottom.
NFC Chip in the Super Bowl. Like we showed our full potential in those two games, which was immaculate.
As soon as that defense came together and started acting like the number one defense in the league, there never should have been any question because you're talking about the most stacked offense in the league being supported by the number one defense. And like, what are you supposed to do against that? I don't know that that's ever been the case in the NFL. And I know we weren't the number one offense statistically this year, but you can't find me a more stacked offense in the league. And I don't know that there's ever been like, and not that we just fulfilled this, but I don't know if there's ever been a number one offense and a number one defense on the same team. And this was darn close to it. Like,
It was
like
great.
really close.
I can't recall off the top of my head, just based off of I don't know how the 04 Patriots were. Like I can't go through these rosters in my head offhand, but yeah, dude. I mean, we're the
My
best team.
point being is that I think there's a reason that there's conversations about whether this was like one of the most dominant teams of all time. Like, and I know it's annoying that it came after the fact and nobody talked about it, during, but there's some truth. There's some truth behind it. There's a reason it's a conversation. I don't know that I agree with it necessarily, but like I do like there's definitely some truth behind it.
now, but it was definitely a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun celebrating. Definitely a lot of fun just seeing it all come together, and just yeah. I, and we're here ready to already talk about next season, which
We
is
got to a
crazy.
point where it became really hard to. I know. We got to a point where it became really hard to imagine us losing, and it's the same way I felt in the 2017 season. It's the same way I felt in the 2022 season, and the 2022 season, really was like we beat ourselves in the Super Bowl a little bit, and not to take away from the Chiefs because they made an incredible comeback and did their part, and they put us in a position where we couldn't make mistakes, and we did, and it was definitely like that was a team that should have like everyone thought they should have won the Super Bowl, and it was nice to see that group get back. So it was an incredible feeling being part of this, getting to say that we're Super Bowl champs 2 times now, and even get to start teetering on the idea of becoming going on a little run, maybe turn into a little bit of a dynasty ourselves because we've got these guys locked in for you've got young guys that are locked in for a long time, and there's no reason to expect this roster to change drastically too soon. So I mean, heck, let's run it back. Why not?
Hey, but I think that's a great transition. Get right into what we just did in the past, literally the
Yes,
past couple
sir.
hours.
And with that being said, jumping into the free agency aspect of everything, let's talk about the two guys that we did already bring back. One being Saquon Barkley, who wasn't leaving, but after his near MVP season and record-breaking year, the Eagles decided to reward him with a new contract, making him the highest paid running back in NFL history. Excuse me as I try to find the actual number for that, but I think everything about that was entirely deserved. And, I think that even making him the highest paid running back in NFL history still has this man underpaid. So I was all for it, and now he's locked in through 2029. I'm super excited. I know that he's still getting up there in age. He's not getting any younger, but I don't think that he's at an age where he's, anywhere near falling off yet. And I think that it was an awesome move to just make sure that he's here for good now. So what did you think about it?
I thought it was incredible. I mean, it was kind of a surprise in my opinion for just the extension this early. I didn't expect to extend him this season. I thought we would maybe next season. However, I think it's well deserved as almost cementing himself the history of breaking the rushing record, being a ginormous part of this team in the entire season, being the MVP of the league. Like we could say that now as a skill position player. He wanted him winning the offensive player of the year and Jamar Chase not getting a single vote for having a triple crown, which doesn't happen often, was just like
No.
come on, bro. Like he's kind of the MVP at this point. Like I know it's a quarterback reward and everything, but like, bro, it's Jamar Chase didn't get a vote and he won a triple crown. Like it's clearly telling you how massive a season this guy had. And
I mean,
extending him,
broke every record, set the most yards for season and postseason combined by a long shot. And everyone and their grandmother knows that Saquon could have broken that rushing record in the regular season if he so chose to do so.
Yeah, I mean it's awesome. I mean I have nothing else to say. I'm very excited. I'm glad that they gave him the extension. I'm glad they paid him. I'm glad he's going to be here basically to the end of his career.
It still basically feels like it's not real that Saquon is in an Eagles jersey, and it's like somehow it's still processing in my mind that we just have Saquon Barkley until 2029, and it's such an incredible feeling. I hope other fans get to enjoy it sometime with somebody similar, but it's a nice feeling to get to know. And for the record, that contract was $41.2 million with a $36 million guaranteed bonus. So he signed the bonus of $36 million on signing. And what that does is it doesn't change it. Like I was hearing a little bit of them talk about it earlier on WIP. Shout out to them for, keeping us updated on our ride home from work every day. But they were talking about the fact that his cap hit is not going to change too drastically. Like it's not going to be any eye-popping number change. They had like on paper, I believe it says that his cap hit is 13.5, but they were explaining that that's probably not entirely accurate, and it's probably more like 6 to 8.
Yeah,
and now it's more like 5 to 6. So like he did go doing that signing bonus did take some of his cap hit away, but not enough for it to be like game changing either. Yeah, so it's not like it really changed much for the outlook of this offseason doing that. It just gave Saquon more money.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. It might have
totally fine by me.
Yeah. Yeah. So
because some people might be worried, looking at the fact that you just gave a running back $42 million, that it might come back to bite you in the salary cap. But because we have one of the greatest GMs of all time and one of the greatest owners of all time, we get to enjoy the luxury of the fact that they just pay them these signing bonuses and just like erase the cap hit that they get, which is incredible. And unfortunately, I think the rest of the league is going to start taking after that and taking after some notes on what Howie does and how he manipulates these contracts. I think that the Cowboys are already picking up a little bit of that, which scared me a little in their restructuring of CeeDee Lamb and probable restructuring of Dak Prescott. I believe the CeeDee Lamb restructure saved them like $20 million in cap space.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow literally came out and said it to the Bengals. He goes, "Well, I guess I guess that's how you got to restructure guys to pay everyone. Yeah, like the owner, like having an owner like Lurie to be able to shell out is so underrated. I know how he makes all the moves, but he's not able to do this without. Oh, here's $40 million. Just throw it to him because I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
pay it to him anyway. Like, and
exactly.
that's what owners like don't understand. I'm not saying it's my money, so like obviously maybe owners aren't as liquid or whatever in what aspect they have it with, but like you're gonna have to pay them at some time, and it's
Might as well give it to him straight up and just keep building the team. Like
dude, it's like even we kind of brush over it, but like Devonta Smith and AJ signing, like that was before all this diva crap. Jamar Chase isn't signed yet.
I
Like
know.
we didn't need to get in a guns battle with like, oh, this is what he signed for. This is what he signed. I want
And
a penny more than him.
They keep throwing T Higgins on the franchise tag and upping
Yeah,
his price every year. And it's
dude,
like what are they doing over there? Like it doesn't
it
make a
makes
lot of sense. It really is such a luxury to have a GM and owner that are willing to work together and make the team as good as it can possibly get.
yeah. I just saw Max Crosby getting signed. I'm trying to pull. He got a 3-year, $106 million extension.
Yes, which
Um,
is the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history.
again,
Which, sorry, you go ahead and give your
no, no,
point.
no, you finish your sentence because it might be the same thing I'm gonna say.
Well, my point was just going to be, I was going to use that as a transition to kind of jump into the Myles Garrett rumors, just so we can touch on that for a second. But if you had a point before that, go ahead and finish your point.
All I was gonna say is that, like, with the Saquon signing, and as we get into Saquon and Miles Garrett and whatnot, like we touched on of AJ, I touched on AJ very briefly right now, but dude, like everything's gonna go up as time progresses. Like Saquon's gonna be paid. He would be getting more money if he like we let him go until the free agency happened after the next 2 years. Like this is essentially saving money. Like, and it sounds like it doesn't sound bad. Like they're getting paid. The players are getting paid now, and like you don't have to do. Oh yeah, we're gonna lose Max Crosby, so let's pay him the most a non QB's ever been paid. Like it's like you know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say. Like it's
Yeah,
just
you get yourself in a like a handicap situation where you either give the guy up or give him what they need, and the longer you wait, the more that price just keeps going up and up and up. And it's super rare that it goes. It's super rare that it goes down with players like that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like truthfully, Hassan Reddick is one of the first situations in a long time that I've seen that happen where holding out really hurt the player. And like, well, holding out's a different situation because holding out inevitably screwed Le'Veon Bell down the line too a few years back and whatnot. But I don't really agree with holding out. But this is what you drive players to do when you don't just give them the money they deserve. And the quicker you do it, the quicker it's going to be over with. And the fact that Howie went out and signed AJ and Devontae before CeeDee Lamb, before Justin Jefferson, before Jamar Chase, who's going to get, they might as well hand him the keys to the organization at this point with the money he's going to have to get.
yeah. They're gonna
Like,
have him and Joe Burrow, and that's about all they're gonna be able to afford.
it is really crazy that these teams, keep letting this kind of thing happen when I feel like there are multiple blueprints out there that are more successful. Like, I feel like there's a pretty fine print blueprint for winning, and it's not breaking the bank. Like, it's not breaking the bank for people, and like working with the players to divvy out that money properly. And again, the owner buying in and doing their part to lighten the load of the salary cap. And when you look back at like Tom Brady, at no point in his career was he the highest paid player in the league. Doesn't mean Tom Brady didn't get his money, but at no point was he the highest paid player in the league. And they went on to win 7 championships. You know what I mean? Like, there's a recipe to this crap, and it's not to just break the bank for the first time you get the chance.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean we're gonna get into it right now, but it's easy from a perspective that we're looking at of like
It
the Eagles
is.
literally
We are
paid
very
Ty
blessed to
Dickerson like
not have to
all
worry about.
every
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then we have young talent too. So it's we're in a I mean the Eagles are in a spot that a team could dream of. Like, yeah, we're gonna have to pay Jalen Carter eventually, but right now he's one of the best D tackles in the league, and we don't have to pay him. Quinyon on the outside, Cooper, like these guys were not.
We've hit on the past 3 drafts, as well as done our due diligence in paying our players to keep them locked in and safe and secure in their contracts. Yeah. And you're doing a great job of, balancing the rookie contracts with the big contracts. And of course, somewhere down the line, you have to pay the piper, which I think that people are going to have to come to terms with at some point. This team is not going to look the same as it does right now. Luckily, we are still in a position where we can make it look the same for maybe 1 or 2 more years. But like things are going to change when some of these, when you are going to have to give a big contract to Jalen Carter. You're going to have to give a big contract to Quinyon and Cooper DeJean, because these are guys that have solidified themselves as like untouchables. Like you have to make sure they stay now, like no matter what. And some of these other guys, like a Josh Sweat, like a Milton Williams, like a Mekhi Becton, who are incredible players and incredible pieces, but you have to look at the long term of how are you going to afford everything down the line as well, and can you replace these guys with draft picks? Because Howie's been doing a great job of replacing the pieces that we lose with draft picks. So you really do have to look at it and just say in Howie we trust with the way he has handled everything lately, because he will put together the best team that he can possibly put together right now. And
I mean, do you want to get to
look at every option?
Do you want to get to the Myles Garrett point or Zach Bond first?
We'll finish on Zach Bond and then jump into the Myles Garrett thing, because the Myles Garrett thing is we're just going to talk about briefly, because rumors will be rumors. And as much as I love talking about rumors and they're fun, let's talk about the real stuff first. So, with that being said,
the Eagles 3 hours ago are re-signing All-Pro linebacker Zach Bond, 3 years, $51 million contract, including $34 million guaranteed and an additional signing bonus of $1.5 million in incentives and such. Dude, you just spoke on Becton, Sweat, and Milton Williams. Bond, we don't particularly draft the linebacker position well. We don't particularly have someone that can step in and fill his void. You know what I mean? Like, as big as shoes as like a Sweat or like Becton have been really good this year, we don't necessarily have what do you want Trotter just to step in? Like, Burks is not on contract. Deed's knee, who knows if he's able to walk again, let alone be an elite linebacker in football. Like, this guy's a first-team All-Pro. You paid him. Yeah, you paid him more than he deserved. Well, I'm not going to get into – I didn't mean more than he deserved. You paid him you extended your arm to him saying, hey, before we get the free agency, you don't even get to hear any other team. We're paying you. We're over – I'm going to keep using.
Say what you want to say. Go ahead.
I think he's getting overpaid for what he. I love how good he was last year. It's a one season thing. Yeah, he was the best linebacker in the league last year, and I hope he continues to be just as good. But it's giving him this money now just secures. It was basically like you don't have any leverage over us if you want to do free agency, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think there's another underlayer to both of these moves, to Barkley and to Bond, and it's the fact that both of these are really friendly deals to bringing in other free agents as well, and getting other people interested in the Eagles, because what these two moves were classy moves by the organization, and the two guys on each side of the ball that made the biggest impact on their sides of the ball got paid good for what they did. And that's a really good sign for players, like this is a cutthroat business where players get screwed over often. And that was a classy move by the organization saying, hey, when you do well on our team and you help us succeed and win, we will pay you accordingly, whether it's the smart move or not. And that's huge. Like that gives a lot of insurance to players that might want to come here and play here. And I think that that's a big reason to why Howie's doing it, as well as the fact that he just, he convinced both these guys to put trust in him and the way he built the roster, and it paid off. And he said, if you put your trust in me, it will pay off down the line. That's what he's doing. He's paying up his end of the bargain. And I think that, when you look at it, you just put $90 million into two players. It's a lot to look at it that way. But I think that these were two players that you needed to bring back under all circumstances. And I think especially with Zach Bond in the linebacker position, Howie has had a good way of finding, for lack of better terms, mid linebackers to be serviceable. We've never had terrible linebackers, but we've never had really good linebackers either. Like, and when I say terrible, I mean terrible. Like, I feel like every year that I've watched the Eagles, I think you can look at it and say, yeah, it would be nice to upgrade the linebacker position, but it's never their biggest need either.
Like
And
Nate Gary.
yeah, that was the Nate Jerry era, Nate Gary, Jerry, whatever. Like that's a little like that was like, I guess that was our darkest point in the linebacker position. But sorry, Nate Gary, no offense.
I know. I don't know why you came up to my mind first, but like Kiko Alonso, like I'll give some.
Kiko Alonso was good.
He was good. He was good for what he was. He was not like
He was supposed to be better. Like he fell off when he came over here, unfortunately.
Like TJ could tackle. TJ did well.
But that's my point. It's like we always find like the one or two guys. Like even looking at last year, like turning Anthony Morrow into like something, like it just usually tends to work out like okay. Like even like we had D'Amico Ryans for a bunch of years. We had
oh my God,
who was Jordan Hicks, TJ Edwards.
That's what I was looking for.
Like we tend to find guys that stick in there and do their job, but like aren't, garnishing these massive contracts that some of these other guys get. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that Howie for a long time has found a way to get linebackers that are good but not great. And I think this is the first time he's in a long time that he's dealt with one that was really great. And he saw what kind of impact that can have when you have a guy that can lead the defense and, command that middle of the field and take away that middle of the field as well as Zach Bond did. And it mattered a lot. And, when you've got a D-line like we do with guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter who take up blocks, a guy like an athletic guy like Zach Bond gets a lot of room to, to use his instincts and do what he does best. And I think he saw the benefits of all those things coming together and how much it mattered to bring back Bond. And I get your point of saying that he probably got a little too much money based on like a 1-year performance, but I think that it was the right move. I think if you let him go, it would have been one of the biggest regrets we would have for years. Even if he didn't pan out on another team, I think taking him off of this team would have been incredibly regrettable.
100% agree. I can't say I 100% agree more. Like it just. That deal just like someone else can give him that money if you don't. You know what I mean? Like that's what I was trying to say. Like I don't mean overpaid in the sense of like him straight up him. Like someone will pay him that money, so he's not going to be overpaid because another team probably will be willing to give him that money. But you had to pay him that money in order to bring him back before he was able to talk to teams, which I'm happy about. So
Howie, listen, like. Again, with the in Howie we trust thing, like Howie's never going to overpay somebody. If he's paying somebody that money, it means somebody else would have also given them that money. You know what I mean? Or at least fairly likely in that regard. So
another guy.
I think that it was.
Sorry, I was about to say Slay.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was about to transition over to Slay and how we cut him and released him. Oh, geez.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. I mean, Slay. Yeah, sorry, a bit of technical difficulties, a little bit of connection errors here, but yeah, losing Slay is definitely. I don't think it's a 1-to-1 situation with Slay here. Me and you have talked about this a few times outside of the podcast, and I think that this was always bound to happen due to the salary situation and just Slay is up there in years. He's admitted that, he only thinks he has one more year left in him regardless, whether that's for us or for anybody else. And he has made it clear that he wants to come back. But I think he was fully aware that his contract was not maintainable for the continuation of the team and for where he stands in his career. And I think that there's still a chance that he might come back. I think that it depends on what Slay is looking for here, and we don't know what Slay is going to look for here. If he's going to look for the money, he's not going to get it here, and they have made that clear. And he might go play one more year somewhere else. But if he's not looking for the money, I mean, if he's, then you can bring him back on a friendly deal and just bring him back for one more year, let him finish his career in Philadelphia, and I'd be a-okay with that, because I think Slay had a great year this past season. He led the league in pass breakups. For how old he is, he still plays at a high level, and I know he has fallen off in terms of like when he got traded here to now, but it hasn't been drastic, and I think that the mentorship that he gives the younger guys is also really important. Quinyon Mitchell has been talking about modeling his game after Darius Slay since well before he became an Eagle. So I think that mentorship matters a lot. And not to mention, Cooper DeJean has kind of instilled himself as a slot guy. So you really do need to get an outside corner. Like, it's not just, you're not just getting any other corner, you're getting an outside corner. And if you can bring Slay back on a friendly deal, I would be all for it, because I think it's going to be tough to bring Rodgers back, truthfully. I hope that we do, but I think it's going to be tough. And again, if you don't see either of those guys get signed between Slay or Rodgers, that means that they have a lot of faith in Keely Ringo as well, just to point that out. But which is very possible as well. We have a lot of depth in the secondary room, which we haven't had the luxury of having in a long time. So it's really nice to have that as well. But it'll be interesting to see how they handle the secondary situation for sure.
Yeah. You touched on Rodgers. I agree with you. I think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna get a team friendly deal. He's only 28. I feel like some team's gonna pick him up and just place him right into the starting role,
He
which he
proved that he's a
deserves.
starting caliber corner this year, and
Which he
he was playing
deserves.
on the bench for us.
Yeah.
So I think that he's
And
absolutely going to get a starting spot somewhere and starting money.
yeah, and with Slay, the thing about Slay is he's 34. I don't think like you mentioned he only wants 1 year. I just don't feel the need to extend him for two or like
No,
more than
no. I mean, he outwardly said he only wants to play one more year. So you give him a 1 year deal, and if he wants more than that, then he finds it somewhere else. I think the team has kind of made that clear, truthfully.
yeah. And I think he kind of hinted a little bit as well as wanting to go back to the Lions because that's where he started his career and his career type thing. And there are a way different team than when he started his career there, just a non-contender dog poop team that does have a young defense that's thriving. I mean, obviously they had a lot of injuries this year and whatnot, but I mean, I feel like if he wanted to go there and they were willing to give him a very friendly deal, like that's a perfect spot for him. Just based off of him saying this was his last Eagles home game and whatnot. When players say things like that before, like even no negative things toward like the team, there's like probably not gonna be here next year. Like maybe he'll come back, but I could definitely see him going to Detroit on like a vet man and just be like, hey, like let me try my hardest to win you guys Super Bowl where I started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't really know what to expect out of that. I suppose we will see in the upcoming days, but I think there's a pretty good chance that Slay will not be coming back. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he did on a friendly deal. So we will see. And when it comes to the other guys, I mean, we are going to be losing Maddox and we're going to be losing Rodgers. And that's not 100%, but I can all but guarantee Maddox isn't coming back, which is a shame because I did like Maddox, but his play did fall off pretty drastically, unfortunately. And he's just been riddled with injuries. I do feel bad for him, but he'll get some money to play somewhere else still. And Rodgers, like we just said, is probably going to garnish some good money. So
yeah, yeah.
we will
And then
see.
yeah, and then we already hit on Milton and Sweat. We both, if we didn't say it explicitly, I feel like we both think they're going to get paid more elsewhere, and it's not really a priority to extend them to anything more than like outreach our arms, outreach
Well,
our
I think
band.
I actually, I've changed my stance on that ever so slightly. Just slightly, not entirely yet. But Milton, unfortunately, I am 100% sure is not coming back because Milton Williams has shown what his potential, you know, is and what he can do. And he's going to get top tier D tackle money. And he
Has
was a
he though?
rotational piece for us. I think he has. I honestly
I'm
think
sorry.
it's a little bit of a stretch. Like it's a little similar to the Bryce Huff situation of last year, where you haven't seen them play that much, but when you have seen them play, it's like, holy crap, dude's really good. But I think that Milton Williams is getting that +5 from what Bryce Huff did last year. You know what I mean? Or +10. Like,
Yeah, but when the other D tackle's getting double teamed every play and you get 5 sacks on a year, I know it's at D tackle position and like 11 tackles, like solo
6
tackles.
sacks
I'm
in the
not
year.
6 sacks. How many do you have in the Super Bowl? 2.
I'm not sure how many he had in the Super Bowl, but I think that
During a regular season, it was 5. But
yeah, I think he only had one in the playoffs. But
and it was the Super Bowl, right?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't need to pay that guy. I'm sorry. Like, just me personally, it just doesn't make sense to pay him anything.
No, it doesn't. He's a rotational. It's as for us, he's been used as a rotational guy, and you're not paying a rotational guy $80 million a year. It just can't happen. So it's just not realistic.
We'll pay him 24 and he'll sit on our bench just like Bryce Huff.
Exactly. I think what's exciting about him is what you have seen out of him: his speed, his quickness, his ability to penetrate through the line, and his strength, all like in one package. And he's only like 24 or whatever he is. He's very young, and that's the big kicker. And I unfortunately don't think there's any chance we give him that money. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The whole Sweat situation, I think, is one to keep an eye on because at first, you know me with the whole Myles Garrett situation, I was so on board, and I still am. I think getting Myles Garrett would just make this defense so unbelievably scary that you should give up whatever it takes to do that because you're in a win now, scenario, and adding a piece like Myles Garrett makes you the scariest team in the league. Like it just does. But I think that the Max Crosby situation and how much money he just got paid, unfortunately, put the damper on that. Obviously, you knew that if you got Myles Garrett, you were going to have to pay him somewhere down the line. But Max Crosby getting the most money for a non-quarterback in NFL history means that Myles Garrett is getting more than that, and that's an issue. That's a big issue. And I knew that was always a possibility. And I knew that the money. I didn't know the ins and outs of how much it might cost to do that, but I think it's less like. I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's much less likely that we go get Myles Garrett at this point because I just don't see how it's affordable, like money wise and cap space wise. In terms of the assets you give up for him, we can absolutely do, but the money aspect is where I get a little lost. And I think the only situation where we bring in Myles Garrett at this point is in a straight attempt to stop him from going to the Commanders if that were to happen. Like, I think that if the Commanders were to go after Myles Garrett, I think Howie would potentially throw the house at them just to make sure the Commanders don't get Myles Garrett.
What is the house to you? Like, how much are you willing to give up?
This would be past what I'm willing to give up, but the house to me would be giving up Nolan Smith and 2 firsts.
Yeah, I was gonna say. That's 2 firsts with Nolan Smith is insane.
Sorry, we froze a little.
No, that was like
that would be like the max I would be willing to give. I think. Sorry, continue.
We're like 5 seconds off. It's okay. No, like you said, like giving Nolan Smith in general, even with like a second, like a first,
is a problem
like
for
you
me.
still have to pay the dude. It's just I can't give up Nolan Smith. He's too young. We don't have to pay him yet. He's showing so much potential and thriving in this Fangio defense. Obviously, it's Myles Garrett, so like you gotta do what you gotta do. I don't know where the money's gonna come from. I don't know any of that. I just feel like it's unfathomable. Like it's a pipe dream at this point. Like I just don't see how we acquire Myles Garrett and are like comfortable of.
I've said that if the price is right and if you can and if it's to stop the Commanders, is the only situation now where I see it becoming like gaining any ground. But like if it were Jordan Davis in 2 firsts, I'd feel a lot more willing than a Nolan Smith in 2 firsts. I would actually be more willing to do two firsts in Jordan Davis than I would be willing to do one first in Nolan Smith. But aside from that point, I don't know what it's going to cost to get there. The Browns don't even want to trade him at all, even though I know that they're trying, despite what they say. They're not going to give him up unless they think the price is right as well. And they're not going to settle on a price. Like, they will keep him on their team despite his trade requests unless the price is right. And it just doesn't feel like it's realistic. And unfortunately for the Commanders, it is realistic. I think they have like $90 million in cap space or something like that. So they have a lot of room to be able to do something like that, which is scary. But we will see, what kind of momentum that rumor will pick up, and what kind of teams will go after him. I'm going to sit here and hold out hope to the day he gets traded, because I just can't help the idea. Unfortunately, somebody put the idea in my head that you can have a D line of Myles Garrett, Nolan Smith, and Jalen Carter, and I can't get it out of my mind. I can't help it. Sorry, but until I'm not going to get my hopes up, but I do absolutely hope it happens. So we'll see with that one.
It's insane just like thinking about just the defenses you can make with just pairing Myles Garrett with any defense. It just changes the entire like a decent defense goes to elite. Like you throw him on the Lions, like it's like, oh wow, well that's elite. Like if Hutchins is healthy, like it is kind of just crazy how much of a difference he does make. And if we are able to get him, like you got to go.
You got to at least try. You got to at least try. If it's feasible, you got to try. If it doesn't happen, it is what it is.
And I'm sure
we're gonna. No, go ahead. Finish.
No, I had a. If you want to go first, because I just have a hunch.
No, I was just gonna say that I didn't finish my whole point of the Josh Sweat thing. This was all part of one point that I keep prolonging.
You can it's okay. My
anyway, after the whole Myles Garrett thing, I think that in my mind, I was thinking about us getting Myles Garrett, that it didn't really bother me that we were going to lose Sweat. But now it does become an issue, because if you lose Sweat, then you are lacking an entire outside guy. And I know that they have faith in Jalen Hunt and where he can get to, but he was not expected to be where he finished this year. And I think there's still a lot of room for him to grow. And I think that now you do have to consider the option of, if you can afford Sweat, to try to at least negotiate with him to try to bring him back. And I'm not saying that it's likely still, because I think that Josh Sweat, just like Milton Williams, off of the playoff performances that they had, especially the Super Bowl performance, upped their contracts by a good $5 to $10 million each off of just that game, let alone the whole playoffs. And he played really well in the playoffs and made himself a lot more money than he would have ended the regular season with. And again, this comes down to what other teams are willing to pay these guys. And Josh Sweat might garnish too much money to bring back. And that's realistic. But I think that they are going to try to negotiate with him, because it does leave us in a bit of a hole if we can't replace him with another guy. And I think that the draft is going to be a big piece too. That, we don't know a lot about the guys in the draft this year yet, but I do know that I think like 40 of the top 100 prospects are D line and D line and D end. So I think that, or D tackle and D end, sorry. So I almost guarantee that we are going to go after an edge or D tackle with our first round pick in the draft if we don't trade it for any reason, and build off of that. But there's a lot of points still to be seen in how he's going to handle all this stuff. Again, I have full faith in what he's able to do, but I just don't know enough about this money situation and how he's going to handle it. Sometimes, he just keeps signing people. I'm like, where does he keep getting the money from? So I hope that that's the kind of offseason that we get to continue to see. But I wouldn't expect any key signings outside of the guys that we're trying to bring back. I'll put it that way.
And I guess we'll touch on it right before we go, because we'll talk more about the draft in another episode, and we'll get into like what we think is going to happen there and the guys that we like. But another guy that we didn't really speak on is Becton on the offensive side of the ball. I feel like it's a very similar situation to Sweat, but I kind of feel like this is his first time in his career that he's been like elite because he's been hurt and he's been in systems where it's horrible. And he finally switched to guard and he was very, very good on our team, if not elite. Um, and for a guy like that, like he obviously wants to come back, right? And like, where do you find like how? I'm not gonna say it like this. I don't feel like it's a Zach Bond type need because I think he is kind of replaceable with Steen and like I mean Fred's outside. He's played Zach,
Trevor
but
Keegan and Fred Johnson's also a free agent as well, who you might see get brought back for a nice cheap deal. I wouldn't be surprised if you do because what we didn't hit on is that Fred Jackson and Jack Driscoll, two of our backup tackles, are both on free agency. So I expect us to bring back one of those guys, and you do have Steen and Trevor Keegan as well on the come up as your depth at the guard position. But to your point of Becton, I think you're completely right that he wants to come back and that we want him to come back. But I think this is 100% like a 50-50 deal here. Like you really don't know what you're going to see with Becton. You don't know what kind of money he's going to garnish. I keep saying garnish.
yeah,
You don't
if you're
know what
if you're wording it
garner.
right.
Garner is, I think, the right word. Either way, you're gonna see him like we don't know what kind of money you're gonna see him get because he was borderline out of the league at the beginning of this season, and nobody wanted to pay him anything. Now you see him come in with the Eagles and have a great year. But do you know whether to attribute that to how great the Eagles O-line already is? Do you attribute that to Stoutland? Do you attribute that to his move to guard? Like, where these are all things for other GMs to think about. And then the next question is how much money is he gonna get from other people? Again, just like everybody else, after an MVP, after a Super Bowl season, these guys' contracts go up a little bit in terms of what other teams are willing to pay them to bring them over. And now you get into a situation where is Becton going to take the money or is he going to do what he thinks is best for his situation? Because clearly that would be to stay in Philadelphia. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. If we pay him a little less money than somebody else offers him, will he take the money or will he come back to us?
Yeah, I
And
mean, if it's $10
that's a
million
tough,
more,
that's a tough
that's a
question.
lot of money. Like that's a lot
Exactly.
that can yeah.
So I think he's quite literally a 50-50 ball on whether you're going to see him come back or not. I think there's absolutely mutual interest on both sides, and it just depends on what he's going to be offered and whether that offer will be high enough to drag him away from the situation that he's currently in here. Because I'm sure from Becton's perspective, he almost feels like he owes the Eagles a little bit for, reviving his career a little bit. I would think so. At least I don't know that he necessarily feels like he owes them, but you know what I mean? Where like he doesn't want to screw them over either. Like he cares about this organization and where they go and how they do. And I think it would take a pretty good amount of money to drag him away. But I don't know what kind of money he's going to earn after this season. I think it's still up in the air.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not first team All Pro, but when you were talking about almost out of the league, moving to a different position on the same side of the ball, and then getting paid, it's literally Zach Bond. He was playing outside linebacker, moved
Yeah.
into the system, and you can say, does Fangio's system do anything? I just thought it was funny how it's like,
I thought that Zach Bond was a similar situation where I thought it was I actually thought of it in the same way. Now that you mention it, I did think
but
that
he was better.
we
But
were going to see us. I didn't, I wasn't considering us signing him before the free agency period starts, but I was thinking about if he was to go into the free agency period, would he come back if we couldn't offer him all the money he deserves, or would he take the money somewhere else? Because you don't know that you're going to fit in a different system somewhere else.
yeah,
And I think, obviously, Bond being a near defensive player of the year brought in a lot more attention than Becton did.
yeah.
But they're the same situation. I think that our system is what revived their career, and they had to decide whether the money's more important to take now or the system is more important to take now. Because if you leave and take the money, you could never work out again, and you could end up out of the league and once your contract is up. You don't know what it's going to look like. So the most money isn't always the best situation to go to. And I think we've seen that a lot of times in free agency where players go places for the money and then get upset afterwards, like Tyreek Hill right now. is upset that he's not winning, even though he was on the dynasty Kansas City Chiefs. But it does happen, and I think that it's definitely something that the players consider and the GMs consider. But
Yeah.
I really hope we bring back Becton, but I suppose we'll see.
Yeah, I know this is running a little long, so we don't have to bring up Kevin Patullo today, but
Yeah, we'll get into him in the next episode.
yeah, but Kevin Patullo wants to bring him back, so that's all I know.
I bet he does. I mean, there's no reason to not want to bring Becton back. I mean,
he's a
we
big
had the largest
coordinator guy.
largest O-line in NFL history. Come on, man.
Yeah. No, but let's go. We did it. I know it's a little late, so my excitement isn't as garnered as
genuine.
I was trying to throw a new word real quick, as hype as I usually am, but I've had a long day. But yeah, dude, I mean, it just the crazy. Like, it's been a month and we're already like, all right, what are we doing here?
We're already right on to the next.
It's
already
crazy,
right to the next,
which is kind of awesome. But yeah, we do have to wrap this up a little bit.
Yeah, the celebration felt short-lived, but it's we're on to the next season. We're already getting ready. We're gearing up, and hopefully, from the looks of it, we're starting out good with Bond and Barkley. Hopefully, we can bring back Becton, maybe Sweat, unlikely Milton and the other guys, but we will see. And like I keep saying, all podcasts and Howie we trust. So, thank you guys for tuning into this episode. We appreciate you guys. This offseason is going to be a little bit weird of a schedule. We're probably going to take some breaks here and there when the action is not at its highest. So make sure to stay tuned with us. We will keep you updated on when we'll be releasing episodes and getting more information out to you guys. So subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned. We will have more information and more, podcasts out for you guys to listen to. So if you like this video, please make sure to click the like button in the corner. And again, last time, we appreciate you guys for coming through this season with us and, getting to win a Super Bowl along with us. So thank you guys. We appreciate you. And we will be back in a week or two, wrapping up the free agency signings and Kevin Patullo and other things. So go Birds, and we will see you guys soon.
Go Birds, baby.